2020 has been a crazy year for relationships. Breakups and divorce have been on the rise worldwide, and this especially includes celebrities. Relationships that were already experiencing problems broke down altogether. The list goes over the 30 mark for celebrity breakups, a lot of which only give a vague but cheery answer as to why the couple split, while others specify a bit more. Some of the names include Mary-Kate Olsen and Sarkozy. According to Entertainment Tonight, Mary-Kate Olsen has officially filed for divorce from Olivier Sarkozy. The couple were married for 5 years. However, Olsen claimed in her request for an emergency order that Sarkozy was trying to force her out of their New York City apartment. Olsen reportedly alleged that her attorneys got an email from Sarkozy's lawyers giving her a May 18th deadline to move out of the place. She also claimed that Sarkozy terminated their lease without her knowledge, and that she's asked him to give her until May 30th. The split appears far from friendly. HBO's Silicon Valley star Thomas Middleditch and his wife Molly Gates also called it quits. Gates filed for divorce from the actor on May 28th of this year, citing irreconcilable differences. Next is Jamie King and Kyle Newman. U.S. Magazine reported the 41-year-old actress submitted the divorce paperwork to a Los Angeles courthouse on Monday, along with a request for a temporary restraining order. A source confirmed to us. The pair tied the knot in November 2007 and shared 2 children, 6-year-old James and 4-year-old Lou. The latest addition to the list is singer Kelly Clarkson, who split from manager/husband Brandon Blackstock after 7 years of marriage and 2 children. According to Cosmopolitan, Kelly and Brandon had been having problems for several months and were making a conscious effort to work things out. They both hoped quarantine away from LA in Montana would help them work things out in their marriage, but instead, the change in environment was actually detrimental. Being away from work, Kelly had more time with her spouse and came to a conclusion. The source also confirms that Kelly started the divorce process, which they'd both been dreading, a few weeks ago, because she knew she just needed to follow her heart and finally realized divorce was her only option. Although a few of the differences between some of the couples gave an idea that there could be future problems, a lack of communication and understanding can definitely lead to trouble. DivorceLaws.com reports, according to a recent study by the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, communication problems were the #1 reason for divorce in the United States. The study stated that 67.5% of all marriage failed because of a breakdown of communication. The reasons for the lack of communication include arguing, the inability to understand the other spouse, or total lack of communication. Thus, we can safely conclude there's no denying that divorce and bad communication skills walk hand in hand.
Hello guys, welcome to the Love School USA, and as we've just seen, divorce and separation and during this pandemic and the quarantine, everything has been keeping on the rise because couples still lack what is most basic for a relationship to work: communication skills. It seems that at some point problems between couples take over and they don't know anymore how to argue or how to understand each other. And of course, communication breaks down. All hope for a continued relationship also breaks down.
You will notice as well that, and when the couple has a very good communication skills, when they go through problems, they grow together even more. They grow stronger. So this pandemic, it would be something that made them stronger even. But when the couple has problems in communicating and they have issues under the carpet, you know, when something bad happens in their life, something goes out of place, that's when they don't have the skills. Because, you know, Renato, the thing about communication is a lot of people say that. A lot of people say, oh, you know, you have to communicate. Okay, all right, but how? If you don't know how to communicate, it's not enough for you to speak, like complain, criticize. That is not communication that we're talking about here. You know, communication is letting the other person know how you feel and hearing what the other person has to say about how she feels about you.
Yes, many people talk about breakdown in communication, but they forget that communication is like a building. You have no building if you have no foundation. First, you need to get the foundation strong and right, and then you can build upon it. Communication is like this in a relationship. What couples mean when they say we can't communicate anymore is not that they can't communicate. It's because the foundations to a good communication have been ruined. What are these foundations? For example, respect. When you lose respect or you don't respect the other person anymore, it doesn't matter what the person says. Person may have a sweet voice. Person may have the best argument in the world. But if there's something there underneath the relationship that made you lose the respect, for example, cheating, right? Infidelity. You don't respect your spouse anymore because you're still hurting from the infidelity. So it doesn't matter if now he or she's walking on eggshells, treating you like a king or a prince or a princess. You are still hurting from the infidelity, and therefore the foundation to good communication has been ruined. Lack of respect. So if you try to work on communication, you will fail every time. What you need to work on is not on communication. What you need to work on is forgiveness. You need to find within yourself the power of forgiveness and grant this forgiveness, so you can move past this issue that causes you to not respect what your spouse says anymore, so you can then restore good communication in the relationship. So this is just one example how Cristiane, communication breaks down because the foundations to good communications have been broken down. So for example, lying is another problem that causes a breakdown in communication. The person has been lied to so many times that she doesn't know if she should believe anymore what the spouse says. So the problem is not a breakdown in communication. The problem is the other person needs to grow a character, needs to stop lying, needs to create a new record of truth speaking, being truthful, so that he or she can be trusted in any word he says. So people need to think about the foundation of good communications and find where that has been damaged, work on that.
Yeah, and I was thinking here, Renato, how many people blame the lack of communication as the main problem in their relationship. And when you look at something and you put all the blame on that, and you just say, well, we just can't communicate. When I say something, the other person doesn't understand or doesn't listen, or says something else on top of what I said, doesn't listen, and so we just can't communicate. And so you blame the communication, the problem with the communication. What we're saying here is that below the communication problem, there are other problems that you may be able to change in yourself. I know that, for example, if you have been lied to, or you have been betrayed, right? What can you do? Because the other person was the one who made everything tumble down, right? So what can you do about that? The first thing you have to do is, ask yourself, do you still believe in this relationship? Ask yourself, do I believe in this relationship? Because if you don't know what you want, you're gonna stay in the relationship. You're gonna be fighting each other. You're gonna be blaming the other person for betrayal. Then you're gonna have the problems of communication because the other person's gonna shut down, right? And then, in a year's time, in a few months' time, you're going to be getting divorced and blaming the communication skill. So let's go back now. You have to go back a few steps behind and understand, okay, what can I do about this? All right, how do I feel about this person? Do I respect this person? I don't respect this person. Why? Why don't I respect? Or because that this person is, for instance, younger than me, right? Because you have a lot of relationships with difference of age, and sometimes the person who's older looks down on the younger spouse because he's more mature, he knows more, he's more experienced in life. So you don't respect the other person because of the age. Mm-hmm. Or you don't respect the other person because simply you have a problem with the male figure. A lot of women don't respect men, not because the husband cheated or lied to her, but because she has a difficulty believing that a man can treat her well. Mm-hmm. Maybe she had very bad references at home. So you need to understand, you have to focus on how do I feel about this person? Why do I speak to this person like this? Why do I have a problem with this person?
Yeah, find out the real problem, in other words. And be careful with labels. Be careful with calling the problem the wrong name. Because once you call the problem the wrong name, in other words, you misidentify the problem, you will never find the right solution. Never. If you think you have problem A, in fact you have problem Z, you will never find a solution for problem Z, for real problem Z, because you think it's problem A that you have. So what we are saying is, a lot of people say, oh, we can't communicate, but in fact that's not the problem. The problem is what broke down the communication in the first place, the foundation of good communication. You need to understand what the real problem between you is. I always like to tell my personal experience about how I used to have a shoulder pain. From repetitive movement, I developed a shoulder pain, and I couldn't raise my arm, and it would hurt so much. And you know, when you start getting a pain like that, you start telling your friends, and one friend says, oh, you should do this, and then you go try it. And somebody else says, oh, you should do that, and you go try it. And you keep doing everything that you think or that you are told you should do to solve the problem. And almost a year went by, and my pain wasn't getting any better, and nothing I tried worked. So finally I did what I should have done in the beginning. Okay, I went to the doctor. I went to a specialist. And when I sat down in the chair, I was, pouring my heart out to the doctor and say, doctor, I've already tried this, I tried that, I tried the other, tried the other, tried the other. And the doctor said to me, very simply, with all his wisdom and experience, treating those patients with those kinds of problems, he said to me, Renato, what you need first, and I was, braced myself to hear what he was going to say. What I needed first, and he said, what you needed first, Renato, is a diagnosis. I looked like a dumb person, a dunce in front of him. Of course he was right. I needed, first of all, to know what the problem was before I could try 101 things that I was trying for the wrong problem. And it turned out that all that I needed was muscle strengthening. That's all I needed. So he put me on a physiotherapy routine, and followed by his advice, I developed muscles that cover that area and solved the problem permanently. So, but everything began with the right diagnosis. With the right diagnosis, in other words, when I knew what the real problem was and guided by someone who knew better than me, what the solution would be for that problem, I just followed and it resolved. So many people, Cristiane, are like this in relationship. They don't know the diagnosis of the problem, of the relationship problem. They know they have a relationship problem, but they don't know what the problem is. And they tell their friends. And they say, I have this, oh, my husband, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, etc. And everybody has an opinion, you know that. Everyone has their 2-cent opinion to to tell you what you should do. And then you go try, but you don't even know what the problem is.
And the nice thing, Renato, is that when you find a problem, when you find the root of the problem, you can also find the solution that maybe you have in your hands. Because sometimes you blame the other person for the problem. You blame the other person for making you feel like that. I remember blaming my husband for making me feel insecure. But when I realized that I was insecure, and my insecurity didn't come from my husband, my insecurity came from my childhood, then I began treating myself, changing the way I thought about myself, changing the way I concluded things about me. Because deep down, I blamed him for feeling insecure, for feeling jealousy of him. But then deep down, I felt like I was inferior to him, to other women. I thought that I had, I wasn't that great of a person. But I hadn't realized that. So I put all my effort into him making me feel good. And we had this problem for 12 years because I thought, no, if only he makes me feel good and special, I'm gonna change.
You misdiagnosed the problem, in other words, and you applied the wrong solution.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know what the real problem was. And the same thing with me.
Yeah, we talk about this in our book, Bulletproof Marriage. We talk about how we found the roots, and the nice thing about it is that once you find it, then you can solve it. You don't depend on the other person to solve it. Because imagine if you have to wait for someone else to solve you. What if that person doesn't want to solve you? Or that person, has her own issues that she needs to solve. So you keep just going around. And we have a question, Renato, of this lady who said that she comes from various abusive relationships. And she doesn't want to she doesn't want to have a problem in her next relationship. She's afraid of getting to a new relationship because of all the other relationships. And I think we should hear her question because this has to do with what we're talking about.
Okay, let's listen to what she has to say.
Hi, my name is Kika, and the question that I have for y'all is, how would somebody who has been in nothing but abusive relationships, physical, emotional, sexual, verbal abuse, how does somebody go from those kind of relationships, that kind of love, that kind of attention, to now trying to have a good relationship, a trusting relationship, a loving relationship? How does somebody make that bridge over? Because in all the other relationships, the trust was broken. I was more just used and abused and thrown away. And I'm too afraid to get hurt again and to be abused again. But I know that my environment is different, so the people will be different. But how do you make that crossover? Thanks.
Okay, Kika, pay close attention to what we're going to say. First of all, you say that you've been in only abusive relationships all your life. In other words, you don't know what a non-abusive or a good relationship looks like. And that's where you need to start your process of change, okay? You need to identify what a good relationship looks like. Because right now you don't know what you're looking for. Okay, in theory you do. You want a relationship where you're not abused verbally, physically, etc., etc. But what are you looking for in a partner who doesn't have those traits? Because if you've been in several relationships like that, it means that you were blind before to signs that these abusive persons normally show already in the beginning of a relationship. you were blind to those signs, or you saw those signs and you didn't make much of them, and you continued in that relationship, and then you found yourself being abused. So what you need to do is understand what a good relationship looks like. In other words, find good couples as references, right? Real men, what a good husband, a real man who takes care of his wife, who is loving to his wife, looks like. You need to find 1, 2, 3 good references. People who treat their spouse well. You need to know what that looks like. You need to know what is unacceptable in a relationship, what is not good, what is simply not done in a relationship. So you can, if you fall again in a relationship with somebody like that, you can identify immediately by the smallest signs that that person has an abusive character. Therefore, you should cut it off at the root. So identify how abusive relationships look like, which you know very well, but also the opposite, what it should look like. A good relationship, a man who respects, who takes care of his woman, who puts a relationship in the right priority in his life, who's not abusive to himself through addictions, abusive to other people in his social circles like family, what his relationship is like with his mother, sister, or ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, how that previous relationship ended. All of that homework you need to learn to do in order for you to identify someone who is not going to bring you to a repeat of this nightmare that you've been in.
Yeah, and I will say as well that you need to look at yourself and see what you have been carrying from these abusive relationships. You know, normally a person who goes through these kind of relationships, they feel very inferior, they feel very insecure about themselves, they believe everything that the other person said about them. And so, you know, when you start thinking that you are worthless, what happens? You start thinking that anything is good enough for you. So, for instance, if you are getting to know somebody and that person doesn't value you, doesn't respect you, that person says, you know, let's see where this relationship is going. I don't want to date you. I just want to, you know, let's just, you know,
see where it leads.
Fool around and see where it leads. You know, this person is disrespecting you. This person is using you. But when you think that you are worthless, you will think, oh, great. At least he wants to fool around with me. Understand? So you have to find out all these things that you probably carry from, you took away from these abusive relationships. And sometimes you took away from your parents, from your house, from your, you know, childhood. Sometimes people carry from their families a lot of garbage. Things they heard, things they saw, you know, and they carried it with them. And unfortunately, these things, they don't just leave, you know, with time. You know, it can be 15, it can be 20, it can be 30, it can be 50 years old. And you can still be carrying garbage from your past. So you need to find these things, which is what I did. Of course, I didn't go for abuse or anything like that, but I had this idea about myself. You know, this very wrong idea about myself. I grew up with a sister who had to have a lot of attention because she was sick. And because of that, I developed this need of thinking, you know, I can't give any problems and all the attention has to be for her because she needs it. I don't need it. And so I grew up thinking that I always had to be in the shadow of my sister, in the shadow of someone else. I couldn't have attention. Because I couldn't give problems because I was lucky not to be sick, to be born with any sickness. So that brought me insecurities about myself. I don't know how we develop these things, these ideas, these theories. But when I married my husband, these insecurities really came out for me. And suddenly I was having these attitudes that I couldn't understand why. And so I begged him for attention. I cried for him to give me attention. And while I was doing that, I was making myself unattractive, you know, maybe making me smaller than him, which is what I didn't want, right? So I had to conclude that, I had to find that out about me, and I had to understand, no, that is all a lie. Everything you carried to today, Kika, everything you were told by people who hurt you, it was a lie. It's not true. And when you get strong in your relationship with God, you will see that you are so special, that you are so worthy, and that you can make a man very happy. If a man of God gets to know you, he's going to be a lucky man. You know, you have to understand this about yourself. You have to change, you have to remove all the bad things that you think about yourself and see what God sees in you, so that you can be this woman that will not only take from a relationship, but also give in a relationship.
In other words, she needs to fall in love with herself first. She needs to learn how to love herself before she can love and receive love from someone else. Because if you don't love yourself very much, and that's very common in people who have been in abusive relationships, they have trouble loving themselves because they've been made to feel worthless by the abusers. So once you resolve that, then you will be healed. You will receive your inner healing, the healing of your heart, of your mind, of your feelings. Then you will be ready to identify someone who is worthy of your love and who is not abusive, and therefore is worth a shot, is worth you giving the chance to this person to enter your life. Okay? So that's where it begins. We wrote a book called Bulletproof Dating, and how to protect your heart from being broken. So we do advise you to invest in reading that book, and we believe that a lot of the things we are touching on here on the program, we delve deeply into those subjects, and we believe that they will open up your mind and help you on your journey to self-healing and to prepare yourself for a new relationship. Find out more about the book right now.
Imagine waking up one day to find that you married the wrong person, or that you lost your true love because you ruined your relationship, or that you'd missed it when that special person came into your life. For those who don't want to spend the rest of their lives regretting a bad decision, Bulletproof Dating is a must-read, no matter what stage of singleness you're in. Whether you're alone, waiting, dating, picking up the pieces of your broken heart, divorced, or widowed, this book will help you navigate the complicated world of modern relationships. Years of experience have given Renato and Cristiane authority to say that most divorces start during the dating phase. Bulletproof Dating is a manual for all ages and will open your eyes and show you practical actions you can take. It's time to learn intelligent love. Ebook available on Amazon.com and other online retailers.
We do believe you will enjoy this book we wrote for all singles, even for those who are not dating. In fact, read this book before you start dating. But by all means, if you're dating already and you want to navigate these difficult waters sometimes, invest and read Bulletproof Dating. You can get it on Amazon and other good bookstores online, delivered to your door. All right?
Well, we've come to the end of the program for today. We'll be back next week here in this channel at this time.
Tune in again to the Love School USA and follow us on Instagram at the Love School USA. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye.